He was only 62, fairly active, worked part-time at a hardware store, and loved grilling on weekends. When George came to see me after his first stroke, he was scared but motivated. He said, "Doc, just tell me what to do. I don't want to go through that again." We got to work. Blood thinners, blood pressure medication, rehab, and we talked about food. He nodded, took notes, even asked about quinoa, which, he admitted, sounded like a bird. His wife, Linda, was on board too. She swapped out fried foods, started using olive oil instead of butter, cut back on sodium. For months, they were consistent. Then, life got in the way, as it so often does. Holidays came. George felt better, and with that came a quiet confidence, maybe even denial. I started hearing things like, "Just a little bacon now and then," or "We had fast food on the road just that one time." But one time became routine, and 9 months later, George had his second stroke. It was worse. His recovery was slower. His speech didn't fully return. I still think about that first visit. The motivation was real. The fear was real. But the follow-through, like with so many of us, faded when the urgency did. And here's the truth I've learned. In over 15 years of treating stroke survivors, food isn't a quick fix. It's not a punishment. It's part of the long game. What you put on your plate today doesn't just shape your waistline. It shapes your blood vessels, your blood pressure, your brain. Every bite is either helping or hurting, and the effects build up quietly, over time, until something breaks. But the good news? That means you have more power than you think. In this episode, I want to walk you through the 7 foods I recommend to every patient who's serious about protecting their brain. These aren't fad diets. They're not expensive, exotic ingredients. They're real, accessible, and backed by science. Because stroke prevention doesn't start with a pill. It starts with breakfast, with lunch, with dinner. It starts with the choices we make every single day, often when no one is watching. So stay with me. We're going to make this simple, doable, and personal. And if you find this episode helpful, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more people find life-saving information, maybe just in time. Let's get started. One of the biggest misunderstandings I see in patients recovering from stroke is this. They think food is just about calories. "Doc, I don't eat that much," they tell me. Or, "I've never been overweight." But here's the reality. Stroke doesn't care how much you eat. It cares what you eat. And more importantly, what that food does to your blood vessels. Stroke is a vascular event. It happens when blood flow to the brain is blocked, or a blood vessel bursts. And what causes those vessels to clog, weaken, or rupture? Years of silent damage, often from poor nutrition. Let me break it down. Every time you eat, your body reacts. Some foods raise your blood pressure. Others spike your blood sugar. Some increase inflammation, which slowly erodes the health of your arteries. Some raise your LDL cholesterol, the type that sticks to artery walls and narrows the space blood can flow through. Now, imagine doing that 3 times a day for 30 years. This is what I tell my patients. You don't wake up one day with a stroke out of nowhere. Your body has been warning you sometimes for decades, but the signals were subtle. A creeping rise in blood pressure, borderline cholesterol, pre-diabetes. Food is at the center of all of it. The fuel you give your body becomes your chemistry, and your chemistry shapes your risk. Let's take inflammation as an example. Chronic inflammation in your body, often driven by processed foods, sugary snacks, trans fats, makes your blood vessels irritated and fragile. That's like driving a car on roads full of potholes. Sooner or later, something gives. Then there's salt. Excess sodium stiffens arteries and raises blood pressure, one of the strongest risk factors for stroke. Sugar, too, doesn't just lead to diabetes, it causes damage to blood vessel linings, creating the perfect environment for clot formation. And the reverse is true as well. Foods high in fiber help lower cholesterol. Antioxidant-rich foods protect against oxidative stress. Omega-3 fats reduce inflammation and keep your blood more fluid. Potassium-rich foods balance sodium levels and help lower pressure. In medical terms, we talk about endothelial function, how healthy and responsive the lining of your blood vessels is. Healthy endothelium means flexible, elastic arteries. Damaged endothelium means stiffness, plaque, and rupture risk. The food you eat impacts this function every day. I'm not telling you to count every calorie or live off salads, but I am saying this. Your plate is a powerful tool in your recovery and in your prevention. Nutrition isn't an accessory, it's a core part of your treatment plan. It doesn't replace medications or therapy, but it supports them. It gives your body what it needs to rebuild, to heal, and to resist future damage. I've seen patients dramatically improve their numbers, blood pressure, cholesterol, even cognitive clarity just by adjusting what they eat, not through restriction, but through intention. In the next section, I'm going to introduce you to someone who made those changes and saw real results. But before we go there, I want you to pause and ask yourself, is the food I'm eating today fighting for me or against me? Because the answer to that question may shape the next 10 years of your life. I met Raymond on a Tuesday morning. He had been through a lot, 2 strokes in under 3 years. The first one left him with some mild speech issues, but he bounced back quickly. The second one? It nearly took everything. When I walked into his hospital room, he looked defeated. Not just physically, emotionally. I remember him whispering, "I did everything they told me. I took the pills. I did the therapy. Why did this happen again?" So we sat down and talked. Slowly, patiently, I asked about his diet. There was a long pause. Then he said, "I didn't think food made that big a difference." Raymond wasn't reckless. He wasn't lazy. He was just doing what most people do, assuming that if the prescriptions are filled and the appointments are made, that's enough. But what we uncovered together was sobering. His meals were still loaded with sodium. Canned soups, deli meats, frozen dinners, convenient but dangerous. He loved sweet tea and pastries, habits passed down from his parents. "I thought it was normal," he said. It is normal, and that's the problem. What's considered normal in many households is actually a stroke waiting to happen. Highly processed, high sodium, sugar-heavy, and nutrient-poor diets are silently harming millions of blood vessels every single day. I asked Raymond if he remembered me mentioning nutrition after his first stroke. He nodded. "Yeah, I remember. I just didn't take it seriously." That moment stuck with me not because he was wrong, but because he was honest. And that honesty is where real change begins. A week later, we sat together again. I wrote down 7 foods. I explained the why, not just the what. He didn't roll his eyes or say it was too hard. He said, "I've got one more chance. I'm going to take it." He left the hospital with a meal plan, a follow-up, and a promise to himself and his wife. 3 months later, he sent me a message. "Down 10 pounds. Blood pressure's better. I don't miss the salt as much as I thought." But more than the numbers, it was his mindset that changed. Food was no longer background noise. It was his daily medicine, his quiet discipline, his anchor. And I'll say this again, for anyone who needs to hear it. No stroke patient has ever told me they regret changing their diet, but far too many have told me they wish they'd started sooner. There's no magic food that erases stroke risk, but there are foods that work with your body instead of against it, nutrients that help your brain, your heart, your arteries, and your recovery. These are the 7 I return to again and again. I don't just mention them, I teach them, I print them, I walk patients through grocery aisles with them. Let's go through each one, slowly, purposefully, like I would if you were sitting in my office right now. 1. Leafy greens, spinach, kale, Swiss chard. If I could put one food group on every stroke patient's plate, it would be dark leafy greens. They are nutritional gold. Rich in folate, magnesium, potassium, and nitrates, nutrients known to lower blood pressure and improve vascular elasticity. These greens are also anti-inflammatory, high in fiber, and full of vitamin K, which supports brain cell signaling. One large observational study found that people who ate the most leafy greens had a 20–30% lower risk of stroke compared to those who ate the least. That's not small. How to use it? Add spinach to your morning eggs. Blend kale into smoothies. Sauté Swiss chard with garlic and olive oil. Aim for at least 1 handful per day. 2. Berries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. Tiny fruits, powerful results. Berries are packed with flavonoids, which are natural antioxidants that fight inflammation and oxidative stress, 2 major players in stroke development. A Harvard study followed over 93,000 women for 18 years. Those who ate the most blueberries and strawberries had a significantly reduced risk of ischemic stroke. Berries also help with cognitive aging. They're linked to better memory and processing speed in older adults. How to use it? Keep a frozen bag in your freezer. Toss a handful into your oatmeal, yogurt, or smoothie. Swap desserts or pastries with a bowl of fresh berries and a sprinkle of nuts. 3. Fatty fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel. Fatty fish are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which help reduce triglycerides, lower blood pressure, and prevent blood clots. Omega-3 second also support the structure of brain cells and reduce inflammation throughout the body. Studies show that people who eat fish 2 to 3 times per week have a lower risk of both stroke and dementia. How to use it? Try grilled salmon once a week for dinner. Make sardines on whole grain toast for a quick lunch. Bake mackerel with lemon and herbs. Avoid frying, use olive oil, lemon, and spices instead. Extra virgin olive oil. A staple of the Mediterranean diet, and for good reason. Extra virgin olive oil, EVOO, is high in monounsaturated fats and polyphenols, which improve endothelial function, the lining of your arteries, and reduce systemic inflammation. The PREDIMED study, a large randomized trial in Spain, found that participants who consumed EVOO daily had a 30% lower risk of stroke compared to those on a low-fat diet. How to use it? Drizzle it on roasted vegetables. Use it for salad dressings. Replace butter or margarine with a tablespoon of olive oil whenever possible. 5. Nuts and seeds. Walnuts, almonds, flax seeds, chia. Nuts and seeds are small, but they're nutrient powerhouses. They're rich in fiber, vitamin E, magnesium, and healthy fats. Walnuts, in particular, are high in plant-based omega-3 second. Flax and chia seeds add lignans and more fiber. They support heart health, reduce bad cholesterol, and stabilize blood sugar. How to use it? Snack on a small handful of unsalted almonds or walnuts. Add ground flaxseed to oatmeal. Mix chia seeds into yogurt. Use as toppings, not the base of your meal, to keep portions reasonable. 6. Legumes, lentils, chickpeas, black beans. Beans are rich in soluble fiber, potassium, and folate, a trio that supports healthy blood pressure and cholesterol. They're also low in fat and high in protein, which makes them excellent meat substitutes. In cultures where beans are a dietary staple, stroke and heart disease rates are significantly lower. How to use it? Add black beans to tacos or salads. Cook lentils in soups. Make a simple chickpea salad with olive oil and lemon. Canned beans are fine, just rinse well to reduce sodium. 7. Whole grains. Oats, brown rice, quinoa, barley. Refined grains cause blood sugar spikes and offer little nutritional value. Whole grains, on the other hand, retain their fiber, B vitamins, and minerals. They help regulate blood sugar, reduce inflammation, and keep you full, preventing overeating and sugar crashes. The Nurses' Health Study showed a lower stroke risk in people who ate more whole grains regularly. How to use it. Start your morning with oatmeal instead of sugary cereal. Replace white rice with brown rice or quinoa. Use whole grain bread instead of white. Final thought. These aren't health foods. They're normal foods, used wisely. You don't need to change everything at once. You don't need to go vegan, organic, or keto. You just need to shift the pattern from processed to whole, from heavy to balanced, from reactive to intentional. Start by picking 2 from this list. Just 2. Eat them once a day. Build the habit. When that becomes easy, add a 3rd. And remember, I'm not recommending these foods because they're trendy. I recommend them because I've watched people reclaim their lives with them, one bite, one meal, one decision at a time. In all my years of working with stroke patients, I've learned something important. People don't fail because they don't care most of the time. They fail because they don't know what's working against them. Or worse, they believe they're doing something good when it's actually moving them in the wrong direction. Here are some of the most common mistakes I've seen when it comes to nutrition after a stroke. 1. Thinking less food means better eating. Some patients believe eating less is the goal, so they skip meals, cut calories drastically, or avoid whole food groups. But stroke recovery isn't about starving your body, it's about fueling it. You need nutrients to heal. You need fiber, protein, fats, vitamins. Eating too little can cause fatigue, poor concentration, and even muscle loss, especially in older adults. 2. Swapping one processed food for another. I've had patients who cut out soda and start drinking diet soda, or they stop eating chips and switch to veggie straws. The packaging may look healthier, but the sodium, preservatives, and lack of nutrients tell a different story. Just because something is marketed as light or low fat doesn't mean it's good for your blood vessels. 3. Believing one superfood will solve everything. Once, I had a patient eating kale in every meal but still consuming fast food, sugary lattes, and processed snacks. There's no food, none that can outwork a poor diet. Nutrition is about patterns, not products. Blueberries won't erase a double cheeseburger. Balance matters. 4. Relying too much on willpower, not systems. Motivation fades. Life gets busy. And if healthy food isn't easy to access, most people fall back on habit. The mistake? Thinking that just because you want to eat well, you will. The reality: if your fridge isn't stocked, if healthy options aren't prepared ahead of time, and if your environment doesn't support the change, you'll default back to what's quick. That's why I tell my patients, don't rely on discipline, design your surroundings. 5. Going it alone. This one breaks my heart. So many stroke survivors try to take on their recovery in silence. They don't want to burden their spouse. They don't ask their kids for help. But nutrition isn't just personal, it's cultural, emotional, and social. If your household still cooks the same way, if your friends tease you for choosing salad over fries, you'll feel isolated, and it won't last. Success comes when the household changes with you. When food becomes a team effort, not a test of will. I share these not to discourage, but to remind you, you're not failing, you're learning. And every mistake is a signal, not a sentence. The key is to notice, adjust, and keep moving forward. In the next section, I'll show you what happens when someone does just that, and how recovery can look when nutrition becomes a true part of the healing plan. I've often said that stroke recovery is a second chance, and what you do with it matters just as much as what doctors do in those first few hours. I've seen that second chance go two very different ways. Let me tell you about Gloria. She was 66 when she had her first stroke. It was moderate, left her with some weakness in her right hand and a bit of slurred speech, but her mind was sharp and her spirit even sharper. From day one in rehab, she was all in, not just with the physical therapy, but with everything. And when we talked about food, she didn't roll her eyes. She took notes. Her daughter helped her prep meals each Sunday. She learned how to use olive oil instead of butter. She swapped white bread for oats. She kept frozen berries in the freezer and walnuts in a glass jar on the kitchen counter. Every change was small but deliberate. 6 months later, her blood pressure was lower than it had been in years. Her labs showed better cholesterol, and more than anything, she felt good. "I don't feel like I'm dieting," she told me once. "I feel like I'm finally feeding my body what it wants." Now contrast that with another patient of mine, Paul. He was younger, just 59, and physically stronger than Gloria when he had his stroke, but he wasn't interested in changing his diet. He said food didn't cause this, genetics did. Despite medication and rehab, his recovery stalled. His weight crept up, his pressure stayed high, and less than a year later, he came back through the ER with a second stroke, this one worse than the first. I never use guilt to motivate my patients, but I do use truth. And the truth is, nutrition is one of the most powerful tools we have in stroke recovery. It fuels your body to heal. It strengthens your arteries so they don't rupture again. It gives you clarity, stability, and long-term control. Gloria may not have had more discipline than Paul, but she had more belief that what she put on her plate could shape her future. And she was right. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't about perfection, it's about direction, about taking control of what's still within your reach, starting with what's on your plate. I've treated hundreds of stroke survivors, and I've learned this. It's not always the strongest, the youngest, or the most disciplined who recover best. It's the ones who decide that healing starts with how they live, how they move, and yes, how they eat. Nutrition is not a side note in stroke recovery. It's not an optional add-on. It's central. Because stroke isn't just a one-time event, it's a condition of the blood vessels, of chronic inflammation, of pressure and flow and balance, and food touches all of those. So here's my challenge to you. Pick one of the 7 foods we talked about today, just one. Start there. Add it to your grocery list. Put it in your next meal. Make it part of your week. You don't need to overhaul your life in a day. You just need to prove to yourself that change is possible, that you can take one small, smart step. Then do it again next week. Add a second food, then a third. Let your diet evolve into a form of daily self-care. Not restriction, not guilt, but investment. Talk to your doctor. Share this episode with your family. Let them know what you're working on, because the people around you matter more than any supplement, any app, any recipe. The change will stick when the household supports it. And if you've had a stroke or you're at risk, know this: you are not powerless. There is no medication in the world that works as well as knowledge followed by action, and no action is too small if it moves you in the right direction. So let this be the meal where it begins. Let this be the moment you reclaim control, not with fear, but with purpose. If this episode gave you clarity, hope, or just one practical step, do me a favor. Click the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps more people just like you find the tools they need to protect their brain, their independence, and their future. Your next decision could change everything. And I'll be right here with you, one episode at a time.